All right. Well, a lot of people may have felt like they were sleeping in a hammock watching WWE Raw this past week. Hopefully, we don't fall asleep and go too long. I had it on in the background to refresh myself. Right now, I'm watching this red hot Sonya Deville, Lyra or Lyra. I don't remember. Valkyria, I believe.
I think
Match?
isn't it it's lyric valedictorian.
I think so. She's all right. She's pretty good. I'll say it now. 'Cause
She's all right.
I'll say it now because I know there's no way you watch this match. She's pretty good.
Okay, well with Raw, it's kind of like, oh, Brian, you're too young. When I was a kid, you came home from school, you're a little kid. Yes, you could turn on Presto the Magic Clown, watch the cartoons, Speed Racer, that type of thing. But if you and before the independent station came on the air in Louisville, you would turn on it, it'd still be soap operas for all the ladies out there, the housewives, The Secret Storm, The Edge of Night, Guiding Light, One Life to Live, General Hospital. That's all it was on daytime television in the 70s was soap operas. And I think they ought to put Raw on Monday through Friday at 1 in the afternoon. Because when last we left the residents of Apple Valley, the widow Ripley was being courted by Dominic Mysterio, son of a poor but proud immigrant goat fucker.
Let's not call Rey Mysterio that. Where the hell did that come
No, I'm
from?
saying, well, okay.
A proud goat fucker.
Rhea
What?
Ripley's not a widow either, and they don't live in Apple Valley. But for purposes of the goddamn bit and the fucking hyperbole related to the comedic effect,
Jesus.
he's fucking goats and he likes it.
Maybe it's more like Dark Shadows than Ryan's
Okay.
Hope.
There you go, and we're living in Collinwood.
That's right.
But it's the talking and now they've even got a Saved by the Bell segment. I think that's where they're stealing the material for the Judgment Day back in the clubhouse, the treehouse, whatever. That's Saved by the Bell, isn't it? They're getting the plot lines and the dialogue.
That's right. Waiting for Brandon Tartikoff to show up.
Well, and hopefully nobody will fucking sneeze in his pasta primavera. But now, see, that's a deep one. But anyway, we're going to Green Bay, Wisconsin for the, and I got to be honest with you again, there was a match that I enjoyed like crazy, one that we will talk about here in a second, but elsewise it's talking from the stars that we want to see talk to the other stars. And I think that's pretty much established by now. But Gunther, and they're all over. The heels have heat with the people, the baby faces, they're cheering, they're chanting. They don't even have to lead the people to chant the things they want them to chant because they're doing it already. And Gunther opened the show with the live in-ring promo. And the fans are booing him now whenever he speaks. Oh, well, yeah. And it's not like, hey, they're having fun with it, but it's not like, hey, we're playing along. It said, no, this is over. And you suck. And Gunther says, everyone here is a bum. See, I'm perfecting Gunther's accent. He sounds a lot like me anyway. I think he's from South Germany. And he cuts the promo on Damian Priest. And do you remember some of the things he said? You may have, zoned out because of your schedule here lately, but he's kind of getting close to the fucking nerve here. He said he doesn't live up to the World Heavyweight Championship. He's a pretender and a wannabe. He was very stiff. And then he said in German, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. Well, that was pretty daggum deep. And then he called all the fans street trash. He is not a heel that is worried about saying cute things for people to giggle. And he called Priest out to hand him the belt and let's just get it over with. I don't want to have to embarrass you. And at least when Priest came to the ring, he's got the microphone and he starts to talk and he just drops the microphone and nails him and boom, and they get in a fight and the referees, security, they have a pull apart. And I think that's been one of the things is when somebody cuts a strong promo like Gunther did on Priest, whether he's in the ring standing there listening to it or it comes beforehand or whatever, when Priest has been coming out trying to be the orator, you kind of like go, fuck, he looks so big and bad, and he's so calm, and he's got such a great demeanor when all the Carlito or Truth or somebody else is pissing him off. And then he laughs it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's very European.
Well, what does that have to do with the fucking, can people in the European people can't be offended or pissed off or mad or bow up at somebody? They just,
Well, it depends who you are and where you're from.
Well, I know the people over there in Switzerland, they're fairly well even keel right down the middle. Nevertheless, in this one, Priest just fought him, and it was a good fight and the good pull apart and the good promo as long as Priest didn't say anything. I think that's where he doesn't come off as confident, badass, or anything otherwise than, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Verbally.
Yeah, I mean, this didn't change my mind. Gunther has to get that belt. Gunther's ready for the belt. And Priest, I don't know what you do with him after that, but this isn't working. I don't think.
Well, after that, if they do this right, where somebody in the Judgment Day along the way, accidentally or on purpose, does fuck something up for Priest, then then that's where he goes, and he's got kind of an out, and he doesn't, just walk out with his tail between his legs, and Gunther can go someplace else with the title. I don't mean another company. I mean with some other matchup or whatever.
Just hopefully not Jey Uso.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, boy, howdy. That'd be rotten. But then, and after the break, they're following up things a lot more on Raw these days. Also, the same people. You see Gunther in the back, and Priest jumps him again, and they fight out to the parking lot, and everybody's going crazy. So, here's another reason I think it would be better for them if Gunther had the belt. It's easier for a heel to get heat to put the number 2 belt over than it is for a babyface, because still, remember we said from the start of this, they just made up the world heavyweight title, and there's been now, 2 or 3 people hold it, but it's still not the Roman Reigns or the Cody Rhodes belt. But a heel like Gunther that had that long reign with the IC title and also can just brag, he can get heat having that belt, and it'll make it a little more important rather than a babyface trying to constantly come out there. Remember when Seth was like, yeah, this is the working man's title or the workhorse title. Oh, that means you're a sucker and you have to fight all the time for it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, again, I think there's numerous reasons why Gunther's the right guy to put the belt on, and now's the time to do it, and you give him a run and let him really be the one to establish it.
But then, Brian, we got the number 1 contender match for the Intercontinental title. And I will watch anything Braun Breaker does. And not because everything he does is perfect, because I love to see the natural talent, the incredible personality, the magnetic charisma that he's got, the fucking intensity. And I like seeing him get better and get more over, and the people are starting to realize what's going on. And again, Braun Breaker versus Ilya Dragunov, but we've seen it before, but it doesn't get old. And I thought remember, I didn't think the first one was, they either had a clash of styles or I just didn't like it as much as I thought I would. But this one was fucking great. And, Ilya is so animated. and the way that he sells and his body language and the facials. And he does unorthodox shit. I'm not sure how I feel about the diving forearm finishing blow on the guy that's flat on the ground, because there's no bump, and sometimes to me it seems like you might be able to see through it. And some people that have taken it might say, see through what, motherfucker? But you know what I'm saying. But anyway, I like both these guys, but Braun is a superstar. And they do a lot of different shit. Even Braun with the gourd buster type of deal, but stomach first on the top of the ring post. You don't see that every day. And they also give the shit a chance to breathe. If it's something big, boom. You know, because of the selling, and Braun's getting it down where he can be off balance by a smaller guy. Did you see the part where Michael Cole said, well, Pat McAfee has just coined that move, a Frankensteiner?
Yeah, what was it? Was he playing around? Did he really not know it? I mean, when you think about it, he's always been calling it a Hurricane Rana. When Scott Steiner was there, he was not doing that move anymore. Did Michael Cole really not know that it's a Frankensteiner? And by the way, they changed that. I mean, everyone who did it for a few years, it was called a Frankensteiner. And then with the rise of the luchadors in WCW, Hurricane Rana became the accepted name for it.
Right.
But for well, I don't know about a generation, but for a fan base for a few years, it was established here as the Frankensteiner, and that's kind of what it always was.
Well, and you know what it was back in the 60s and 70s, don't you?
Something you never saw except if Gordman and Goliath came to town?
No, Ricky Morton was doing that in fucking 1979.
Right. I mean, again, Scott Steiner did it a little different because he was actually sending the guys to the ropes, but Ricky Morton was doing that in Mid-South Wrestling in 84, the stuff we talk about. Yeah.
And I mean, the flying guys in the 70s, but it was called a Mexican head scissors because that's the way they did it in Mexico. They didn't do the regular flying head scissors that the Gibson brothers, Ricky and Robert, were so good at, or Red Bastien, or, you know, all baby faces in the 50s and 60s and 70s. They did it from the front like that. So it was a Mexican head scissors. In Mexico, it was still a Hurricane Rana. But when Scotty started doing it, at the time, the opponent would be stationary or standing up from a bump, and you would run up and jump up on the shoulders, sit there, and then backflip and do it. But I don't know that anybody in America had, or maybe even in Mexico, I don't know, had shot the guy on the ropes and on the fly jumped up, caught him, and fucking took him over at that point. That's why all the guys in I think of how many things Flair had seen. How many things all those guys had seen, and they were holy shit. It was new to them. And so that's, you know, at first, Scotty didn't really have a name for it. And then it was one of the Clash of Champions I was doing with JR. I did the interview with him. Goddamn, where was it? Somewhere in the Northeast. I was doing the interview with him. And Scotty had earlier that day said, hey, I came up with an idea. I can't do Scott. I want to call it the Frankensteiner. Oh, great. So, you know, because I was on the booking committee at the time. So I went and told Flair, yeah, that's great. Feed him the question or whatever. So I asked him, hey, what do you call that thing or whatever? And it was just his idea that day. But anyway, and then Braun is doing it in a completely different way than anybody else has, because he's so athletic and the spring in his legs. He adds the run up to the ropes. It bobbled that once, but he's nailed it a lot. And then the double fucking kind of fuck you up top, and then the leap and boom. He's spinning so fast that the guy has to take his own bump. And you can kind of say, okay, well, it's the momentum, right? The guy being snapped off by his head. But the one thing that Scotty did on the fly is he's kept the head scissors and took the guy all the way over and ended up on his knees on top of the guy. And that was just amazing for his size. And And some of the guys that were coming off the ropes, the job guys back there, were like, a bucket of disconnected body parts.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like is you should call it Frankensteiner because that's what it is, but it points out that that's Steiner, but he's not?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only weird thing about it.
But anyway, so they had a good match. I encourage everybody to watch Braun Breaker since then you can say you knew him when he's the WWE champion in 2 years or whatever.
What'd you think of the finish?
I liked the finish because, well, here's what the finish was if you didn't see it, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. Ilya hits a big move on the apron like a Death Valley driver, and Braun's out on the floor, and Ilya's going to come and jump off on him, and Braun comes at him with a spear, boom, and he sold it on the floor, and the referee stopped the match. And they blamed the head hitting the apron, and I'm pretty sure I don't want to be, Ilya called me up and say, "Hey, motherfucker, I got a concussion." But I think he skirted by the back of his head on the apron. I don't think they intended to be that close to the ring. But it ended up that way because Braun's so explosive anyway, he just took him. But it was better off because Michael Cole instantly, look, his head hit the back of the apron. Or back of the ring.
And he sold it on the floor pretty good, too.
Yes. But anyway, with that impact, boom, and the guy sold it. And the referee got in there, and he couldn't get up. He had the breath knocked out of him, whatever. And that saved beating him 1, 2, 3, but it still got Braun, over as the winner. And so now he's got the shot at Sammy for the Intercontinental title. It will be unusual, I would think, to see Braun lose twice to the guy. Don't you think?
At SummerSlam, I don't think they could beat Braun after they just beat him in the previous match with Sammy, unless there's a bigger story they could somehow tell that we're not thinking of, but I don't think he should be eating any more losses right now.
At any rate, I love shit like this. Everybody's being serious about what they're doing. There's a plan. There's a game plan. They're getting a heel over and getting a babyface over too with Ilya.
But that's part of the issue with Raw. You have the General Hospital segments, but then you have the Dark Shadows segments. You go from the serious, the things that make sense, whether it's talking or a match like this. And let it be said, Michael Cole is much more tolerable now than he has been maybe ever without Vince McMahon there. And McAfee could be annoying, but he gets a good line in there every now and then that shifts the commentary. And he says the right thing and no one else does. But he's also annoying in between all of that. And I think he's kind of aware of it too, which, makes it even funnier. But you get these segments and these things that work and are serious. And again, they're establishing both these guys. Ilya's lost a lot. And I don't think it's hurt him yet because of the way things have gone down. But they're trying to establish these guys. But then you go to the wacky, the silly, or the lights out, whatever it may be.
Or just the juvenile, potentially. Because
the juvenile, that's a good way to put it.
Because we're back there. Rhea Ripley, the biggest female star in the business, is back, and she's addressing the rest of the Judgment Day like a friendly supervillain. Just, that's... And Dominic still wants to talk to her. And he's worried about her having something to do with Jey Uso. And Finn tells Dominic, well, you ought to fix Jey Uso for talking about her or whatever, but Rhea doesn't want to start a war with Jey Uso. When did Jey Uso suddenly become a nuclear superpower? It's this goddamn heel group has been fucking with everybody, including the Bloodline at one point. Don't want to start a war with Jey Uso?
Well, they've also been teasing on social media and between all this stuff with Liv and Dominic that Rhea's interested in, or at least is playing around a little bit with Jey Uso.
Well, I know, but just the way that this whole verbiage is going on, right? Instead of saying, no, don't fuck with Jey. Jey hadn't done any of this, so we don't want to start a war with Jey Uso. It's just...
Jey Uso and his army. Who's his army? Why wouldn't you want to start? He has no bloodline right now. Why wouldn't you start a problem with him?
You know where he keeps his army? It is sleevey. So
stupid.
have they? and do you know, matey, where a pirate keeps his buccaneers?
I know this one.
Under his buccanet. Anyway, I think they might be missing time to get her away from some of these people besides Dom. But the thing with Dominic, she's forgiving him. Well, we'll get there later on. We had a girls' match. We had another Wyatt VHS of Zombie Girl, whatever her complaint is about the way that her existence is gone. I don't understand that shit.
That's my favorite thing. We're all monsters. Here are our grievances.
Yeah.
They say all the things that are wrong.
I got a lot of problems with you people. But you know what we didn't have a problem with? Because at the 9 p.m. hour in Green Bay, Wisconsin, America's dairy land, smell that dairy air. Out he came, the man, the myth, the legend, like a Mussolini with extra cheese. Wisconsin cheddar, if you please. Here comes CM Punk.
You proud of yourself?
What are you talking about?
Nothing.
I hit that note like I hit it all the time.
Which note? Which note is that?
That was that note in between the C and the F. It was a F minor note.
It's a big F, that's for sure.
Yeah. But he's got the big pop. He got the big entrance. They chant CM Punk. And he's doing his promo. He's doing his thing. He's talking to him. He says, the bay is green. My shoes are pink. And I say that we stain both of them with the blood of a Scottish psychopath because as of this past Saturday, I'm medically cleared to wrestle. And he calls Drew McIntyre out there and he pulls out some tape and starts taping his fists up like, we're going to goddamn set to this thing right now, Drew McIntyre. I'm going to walk the dog on you. He's taping up. And here comes Drew out with the microphone. And again, this fucking guy, I love him. I can't do the accent though. Nothing's going to stop me from tearing you apart. Except I don't want to. And the people boo. And so Punk says, well, I do. And he charges Drew McIntyre. And here come the referees and blah, blah, all the people out to separate them. And McIntyre says, I'm not going to do this here. This is bigger than Green Bay. And then he still got the bracelet with AJ and Larry's name on it. And so while the referees are holding Punk back, his raving madman psychopath trying to get at him, he say, you ought to calm down. You ought to think more of your family, and fucking shows the bracelet. And then here comes Adam Pearce, Killjoy, and says they're not fighting tonight because Drew McIntyre is reinstated and Punk is cleared and the match is official at SummerSlam. And that gets a big pop. It's like, this is almost like a goddamn compensated studio audience with a fucking cheer or applause and boo sign or whatever. And if anybody gets physical, the match is going to be off. It's going to be canceled. And the instigator of that physicality will be suspended. And Pierce also said, I got a referee problem. And then boom, and here comes Seth Franklin Rollins. And he gets a big pop coming out in his backless tuxedo negligee. Negligee? Negligee. Is it negligent? It might be negligent.
That's right.
Ha! Well, there you go. You know, we harmonize like the Osborne brothers.
The negligent negligee.
It's an Earl Stanley Gardner mystery, the case of the negligent negligee. The fuck? And by the way, since we're talking about wearing apparel, I'd like to send a special shout out to the guy in the Cornette face shirt in the front row. And those are available at jimcornette.com all day long.
Or you can pick them up directly from the store.
Yeah, but it's the store over at the Feather Bottoms, not over here at the castle. It's the northern distribution facility. But anyway, and Seth comes out again as he looked like fucking Zsa Zsa Gabor cooking breakfast on Green Acres. And he's the guest referee. And now both guys are pissed because Punk and Seth don't like each other, and Seth and Drew don't like each other, and nobody likes each other. This is setting up. And I'm not talking about it SummerSlam. It's great. This is where you start. But this is setting up a three-way that makes some goddamn sense. And I bet with those three in it, they could pull it off. But because there's issues amongst everyone that have already been clearly established.
Yes, I mean, that's right. My only thought was, because they have not had a singles match yet, the idea of injecting Rollins into the match. But is Seth Rollins needed for this match?
No, you mean as the referee?
As the referee, again, they haven't had a singles match yet. It's been maybe the feud of the year. The build-up's been great. Now, before they even have their first physical encounter, Rollins is going to be in the middle of it.
Yes. And I love it because it's not something they've shoehorned in. It's something that makes sense because all three of these guys have their issues where they've talked about each other individually for months and months now. They set it up since Punk came back. And honestly, having Seth, not only is it an attraction for SummerSlam, is something bigger to advertise, but because he's going to be involved in the finish, both guys, no matter which way it goes, can call bullshit, which means a natural rematch amongst them. Maybe Seth is neutralized somehow, or we still need to have Seth versus one guy or Seth versus the other guy. And then I'm talking three-way triple threat, whatever you want to call it. That may be 6 months from now. But all those things make sense. So I don't mind this being the starting point because it's going to give them more options. Don't you see, Matthew?
No, I see. And, I know that that's one of the directions they can go in for Punk because it is fresh, him and Rollins, and it is something that was teased from the moment he came back, technically before he came back, if you really want to talk about it. But I don't know. I was kind of hoping for him and Drew just to have a kick-ass match, but...
But I'll
see what the story is. I'll see what the story is.
You either, in a kick-ass match, well, and it's not like they're not going to have a kick-ass match.
Right,
but in a kick-ass match with referee Arnold Finster.
But it sometimes would telegraph
but it
the
doesn't
referee
here.
being involved in the finish.
Well, the referee's going to be involved in the finish, but which way did he go? Which way did he go?
George?
See, that's the thing is Seth is a babyface. You would think he'd favor Punk, except he hates fucking Punk, so he might favor Drew. With a regular referee, you either get a finish, one guy wins, one guy loses, or you get some kind of bullshit DQ, whatever. This way, and because if you don't want to beat either one of these megastars the first time, you can beat either one of these megastars if Seth Rollins is in some way culpable because he got offended. Remember the Undertaker, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, I think, boom, boom, boom. Well, he ducked the chair. He meant to hit the other guy, but well, what the... And both guys can bitch, depending on who loses. And then you have, well, this guy's mad at the referee. We'll have that match. That guy's mad at the referee. We'll have that match. We got to rematch these two guys, but with some other stipulation. And what about all three of them? God damn it. We could do that too. I love that.
Do you think it'll be good, great, or awesome?
I think it will be so awesome that it will have to be delivered in a box. Because anything that comes out of a box of awesome is over. You know, Brian, I feel this way a lot. As a matter of fact, most people feel this way. I saw a piece on the news about this, that most people find that it relaxes them. It takes them away from the hurry-scurry world that they live in, the hustle and bustle of the stress and bug tussle. If they just get a box about once a month, a big old box, and you think, what in the world could be in this box? And you set the box down and you pick up, now they said on the news, a hatchet or a claw hammer, but a ball peen hammer will work as long as you use the sharp end and kind of hit downwards. But you just bust into this box and you see what's in it is awesome, and it makes you feel better. Have you seen these reports now? It's sweeping the nation.
I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. For the record, Box of Awesome is in a box that you could easily open without any sort of power tools or special devices or whatever.
It's nothing. No, we're not talking about anything you got to plug in. We're going back to the Stone Age. We're talking about hatchets and awls and sharp
hatchets.
Yeah, and sharp double-bladed axes like they carried in the medieval times, and people are taking and they're opening these boxes of awesome with them, and it relieves their stress. And then they see what's awesome inside of it because, you know, the people at Bespoke Post, the leaders there at boxofawesome.com, they're the leaders. We are merely the pawns in a game. They've got all kinds of stuff from mom and pop outfits and small companies and artisans and craftsmen all across the world, all the way from here to Zanzibar with a stop in Antarctica. And they have got a variety of things for you in your daily life that you might like, depending on what you like. And that's why they'll ask you what you like. You tell them what you like, and they'll send you what you like. Everything from the handcrafted knives that Brian Last has secreted all throughout his house and under his pillow. They've got barbecue rubs. They've got hand-blown crystal glasses from Italy. They have got more knives. They have got tools. They have got cooking utensils and various complementary things for the culinary arts. They've got all that and more at boxofawesome.com. And what you do is, like I said, you tell them at boxofawesome.com what you like, take the quiz, join up, and they release new items every month just like that. Just bing, bang, boom. They don't slap you in the face unless you're interested in that. And I think they got a guy that comes over and slaps you in the face, but
they don't have a guy that comes over and slaps anyone in the face. No, they do not.
They used to have one on Tuesdays, but you can choose from a standard or a premium box. And when you become a member, you will then have access to the stellar discounts across the veritable cornucopia of fine products, up to 30% or more off. And you're supporting small business at the same time. Did I mention, Brian, that these are up and coming businesses, mom and pop shops? They're craftsmen is what they're artists is what they are. They're making these things from the bowels of the earth. They dig up a fistful of dirt and grab a couple of rocks and cut a limb off a tree, and boom goes the dynamite. You've got a handcrafted item of some sort or description. Or they might distill something out of the earth, and then you can drink it. Because, as a matter of fact,
that's not part of the play. Again, I don't know what you're talking about here.
No, because these are craftsmen. They're taking the old ways and the old methods into the with them. They're carrying these traditions on. I'll have you. I got some of the coffee from one of the vendors, and I brewed up the coffee, and I drank some of it. I said, "Well, it tastes like mud." And Stacy said, "Yeah." I said, "It was ground this morning." But nevertheless, if you in your box of awesome, you don't know what you're going to get until it's there, and then you're going to love it. You're going to squeeze it and hug it and call it George. And right now, you can get 15% off your first box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code JCE. JCE.
Yeah, what the hell was that?
Well, that's because you're always asking me, what's that code again, Jim? Like, people can't remember by now, JCE. That's 3 letters, 2 words, I quit. No, whatever. That's sorry, Gordon. Sorry, Gordon. 15%.
That's the one line people remember from that match, though.
Yeah.
Right? That's the one line from commentary people remember from that match.
5 letters, 2 words. I quit.
Now give me my scotch.
Well, 15%, boxofawesome.com, JCE. That's what you need to remember from now until doomsday, or until Box of Awesome goes out of business for giving you such great deals on all these products. I don't know how they do it. They send things, and you know that whole assembly of the actual life-size model of the Eiffel Tower, they got that in a 2x2 foot box. I've been working on it for months now.
Yeah, I don't know if that's one of the items that I'm aware of.
I think they discontinued it because of the problems with manufacturing.
Again, I don't know what any of that's about, but we could talk about awesome items and awesome things, and they can arrive on your awesome doorstep via your mailman.
The son of a bitch better not come up on my porch. Not on my porch.
What if he had your box of awesome, that man?
He needs to leave it on the wall. My porch is sacred. Don't be coming up on my front porch.
Well, Jim, that's Box of Awesome. What's that sacred promo comb? What's that promo comb? One more tide. That's right. T-T-T-T-T.
J-C-E.
All right, well, let's JCE our way back to Monday Night Raw. Or is it just Raw? What is it officially right now?
It's Monday Night Raw. And what now? Netflix, have we decided that? I hear so many things. We've talked about so many things. They're going to stay on Mondays with Netflix.
I believe so, and that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, because it would disrupt our whole pattern if they wouldn't do that. So speaking of disrupting a pattern, I'm going to skip over the next 20 minutes of this program. But basically, they had a 6-man tag to give Otis Tozawa and Model Girl a reason to be out there. I've got to admit, Model Girl I've blistered Johnny Gargano for being Johnny Same Face because it's just that bleh expression. He looks like Lon Chaney Sr. next to Model Girl. Her expression is always the same mixture of scared, confused, and puzzled.
Leona Chaney the third.
Leona Chaney the third. Actually, she would probably now, because Lon Chaney Jr. was born about 1910, at least. He had to be 30 plus in the Wolfman.
You feel bad for him. I mean, great career, although...
What?
Maybe in his own head, in his father's shadow, right?
Well, not only in his own head, but let's be honest, Lon Chaney Jr. was one of the shittiest actors in the history of motion pictures.
But he had a good career. He got the Wolfman. I mean, that's a role that everyone talks about to this day.
And only because of he was Joey Rossi. He was George Goulas. He got the shot as the Wolfman because of who his father was. He never attained the heights, the notoriety of Lon Chaney Sr. in his era, who was one of the biggest stars in silent films, the only horror star of note of the silent film era because of the Hunchback of Notre Dame and the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
Well, and all of he did his own makeup because he came from vaudeville and the live stage, and he was able to transform himself into all these different characters. If he had to be what was the penalty was where he was the legless man in the little wheelie thing, that they had back in the 1920s for the legless beggars. He actually strapped his fucking legs behind him to the point where he was losing his circulation. Or for the Phantom of the Opera, he fucking extended his nasal openings with wire so that he looked more like a skull. He'd draw his eyes back with shit. And, that was his trademark, but he was one of the most famous motion picture stars of the 1920s in the country. And
yeah.
Lon Chaney Jr. never got that. The biggest, besides the Wolfman and the horror genre, which he got playing pretty much off of his father's reputation, would it be not of Mice and Men would have been biggest mainstream movie part he ever played, and he was a supporting actor at that point. He never headlined. I mean, The Hunchback of Notre Dame at the time was one of the biggest budget silent films ever made. So do not compare Lon Chaney Jr., my fine friend, to his eminent father.
Well, again, he was also really good as a hungover Wolfman in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Although I'm not sure he was supposed to be hungover in the script. Who do you think was a bigger star, Lon Chaney Sr. or Karloff? And again, when they brought him over, it was just Karloff. It wasn't even Boris Karloff, just Karloff, like a wrestling attraction.
Well, no, because he, in The Criminal Code, which was directed by Howard Hawks that was released either earlier in 1931 than Frankenstein or late 1930, he was still more of a supporting player. He had a name on the stage, and that he did have a couple of movie roles where they were just casting him because he was this odd, extreme facial feature looking Englishman that had theatrical background.
But with Frankenstein, it became just Karloff.
With Frankenstein, it became just Karloff, but that was only, remember, in the closing credits. In the opening credits, they didn't tell you when Frankenstein was first released who played the monster. Did they? Or am I confusing that with something else, or is that the way you remember?
I don't remember offhand. Did you like in the old black and white films when they used to have the credits at the beginning of the film, not the end of it? Like the film ended and that was it. You were out.
Yeah, boom. The movie company studio logo and it boom. Yeah, it's a much more linear thing to do, but for me, but you know me, I like things orderly. But nevertheless, Karloff became a bigger star. Not only with Frankenstein, which was a huge success, but through the 30s and into the 40s, and then he had such a longer career. I still think Lon Chaney Sr. for his time may have been, more famous than any of them, because that was a period of time where remember, there was very little radio in the 1920s, and there was no television. Most people, a large percentage of the American population, was going to the movies 2 and 3 nights a week in those days. So the silent movie stars, we always talk about this. It depends on how many people have heard of you as to how big of a star you are, not whether you're the best at something. And more people had heard of, Chaney Sr. than it took Karloff probably a couple of decades to build that kind of widespread notoriety, recognition.
Karloff may have been more of a Gus Sonnenberg than Chaney's Ed Strangler Lewis.
I think there you go. But still very comparable.
It's crazy. I used to know some old guys. I mean, I got to think a lot of them are dead now, but they would tell you these stories of, like, I took the train into Times Square and I had 25 cents and I got to see 3 movies, the shorts, they had live music, a soda, and a popcorn. It's like, what? It sounds crazy. It was the whole day. They just went to the theater, and the whole day the theater had things happening. You could just go in there and stay there all day.
Oh, and we should tidy this up before we get back to the wrestling. For a lot of the young folks out there say, well, who is this Lon Chaney Sr.? Then if he was so big, why didn't he stay big? He died in 1930, right after he had released his first talking picture, which was a remake of The Unholy Three that he had done as a silent. But he had throat cancer. He's only 40-something years old. And the rib of the whole thing is that in his first talkie, he had played 3 or 4 different parts and was mimicking voices as well as being the man of 1,000 faces. He played an old woman and did an old woman's voice and blah, blah, blah. So, well, now Chaney's going to do faces and voices, and boom, and he's gone.
Did you, I never asked you this before. Are you a Mel Brooks fan? I was thinking of the movie Silent Movie that he did.
Yes. Young Frankenstein is our favorite over here at the castle, obviously, because it's a classic. But yeah, I love Mel Brooks.
What about Silent
Movie? As much
Movie?
as we've talked about the producers and Silent Movie, I've seen it. I haven't seen it in forever. Not one of my...
Because that came out in like 79.
Go-to.
That's a movie you potentially could have seen in a theater. That's why I'm asking you.
That might be... I mean, Stacy got a DVD set of Mel Brooks, but I don't know whether in the theater might have been when I saw it. That might have been the last time I saw it. What were you going to say about it, though?
You think Shawn Michaels is trying to steal the Marty Feldman look? No, I don't know. I was just wondering because we're talking about silent films. I thought about silent films.
Werewolf. They're wolf. Anyway, so they did the thing with Gable and the Creeds come out and berate and browbeat Otis and Tozawa and Model Girl, but then says the Wyatts are after all of us, so we ought to team up. And then suddenly Otis has become an orator. And he just delivered a calm, speech about why, no, we're not going to rejoin you. You're on your own. And the fans are chanting for Otis, but don't you expect that big meatball to fucking say, look here, something like, and suddenly he's, a goddamn public speaker. And then Gable sicked the Creeds on him, and they got sloppy heat, and Otis fought back enough to grab Gable, but the Creeds took over again, and they beat up Otis. And then the lights start going out. And the crowd chants, "You fucked up." And so there was a long audio mute. And then we get the piano music. Don't take that as a cue, Brian. And then we get the fog machine. And did you see the tweeterer that had the camera phone footage, cell phone footage, whatever the fuck the kids call it?
Like a water slide the guy held up. How big was that tube?
Folks, if you haven't seen what we're talking about, just right in front of God and everybody, as Aunt Lola used to say, they stick a giant tube. It looks like one of those goddamn things on the deck of a cruise ship in the movies that in a comedy the guy gets stuck in and they have to pull him out by his feet. Big horn thing. Is 2 feet around, and they just stick it right in the corner of the ring in front of all of the fans so that some technician is doing this so that the Wyatts can show up.
Yeah, see, that's what got me a few weeks ago. You actually saw, because it was the wide shot of the ring, you saw the guy come up in the corner with the thing. So how are you supposed to take it seriously if you even see it?
Well, it looks even more ridiculous from the vantage point of the front row. And then you see silhouettes. Silhouettes in the night. And so while all of this is going on, they've snuck that is Uncle Howdy now. Is that the Uncle Howdy outfit? Is that Uncle Howdy? Who was the guy in the ring?
It wasn't Boy Howdy. I think it was Uncle Howdy.
Could it have been Captain Howdy? He needs to be promoted. But nevertheless, he's in the ring behind Gable and grabs Gable and gives him Bray Wyatt's finish, which is it looks like an upside down backwards crossroads thing. He just spins him right around there. And then they just go to the break. Well, that's normal. Suddenly, the fog rolls in like London on a fucking humid day. And this fucking monster creature drops one of the wrestlers on his head. And now we're going to go sell you some toothpaste. I want to like Chad Gable so much, and he's in the middle of all of this. He can't get away. Just him and Otis without everything else might even be interesting. Am I overstating this?
I mean, this is one of the parts I started fast forwarding during because I kind of knew what was happening and you knew it was going to turn into the Wyatt stuff. And I'm not a fan of that stuff. And this didn't change my mind when I stopped to watch it. The Creeds apparently are real brothers and they just don't look like it at all.
No, I can see it. Oh, yeah, no, there's no suspectifying the milkman in that.
That's not what I was saying. That's what you were saying.
I'm just, actually, I could see that they were brothers right off because they're not like identical twins, but they have the same kind of characteristics. And also, it's been proven because, their mother once, when
Stop. No.
well, no, when they were younger,
No.
she had them both take a DNA test just to make sure that they were hers.
Again, none of this is true, let alone confirmed. But what is this leading to? Is this leading to the Creeds and Gable feuding with the Wyatts? Is that like the mid-card feud? That's what it's going to be? All these months of weird static and cut-ins and videotapes leads to that? Is Otis going to join that heel team? I mean, what is this other than something I don't want to watch?
Well, and that's a good point. And also, Gable and the Creeds, you can see why they want to put them together because the Creeds have the amateur background, and so does Gable. Gable is an accomplished professional wrestler. I have yet to see that from the Creeds. We've talked about their tag team matches in the past. They look better in suits than they do in whatever the fuck it was they were wearing. But they're very green. And Gable's drawback is he's small. So if they put him against the supernatural family of, Karloff, Lugosi, Cheney, and fucking whatever, then I don't see this is going to be real good. Anyway, we're going to have one more segment, and then I'm going to explain how I forgot to watch the last hour. It was on in the room. I was just distracted and forgot to watch it. But Rhea and Dominic. Brian, didn't everybody want Rhea Ripley to come back to tell this fucking little weasel Dominic, what time it is and what he can do with his goddamn mommy bullshit now that, he's been bumping uglies with Liv Morgan? Wasn't that what the idea that everybody was kind of thinking was going to happen?
Swerve.
No, he works for the other guys.
No, old
She doesn't have anything to do with him.
No, an old school Swerve. You thought it was going that way. We went this way. We swerved. I guess I shouldn't say which way. Then maybe his song. I forget what he says in his song. He swerves when he drives, not he swerves to the right.
But he can't drive 55. And if I had a hammer...
Yeah, I would hit myself in the head because we've killed the show. Where were we, ladies and gentlemen?
So we were at Rhea and Dominic in the ring doing a promo, and now Rhea's been pissed at everybody. And Finn was given the Judgment Day orders earlier, and they were all plotting. But now Rhea just says, Liv Morgan, you want him, come and get him. And there's Dominic still in the ring, humming. And Liv is up in the cheap seats with a spotlight, cutting a promo where Rhea can't get a hold of her. And basically, she can wait to fight Rhea till SummerSlam. She and Dominic have feelings for each other because Dominic doesn't go for girls that look like you, Rhea. And Rhea starts to go for Liv, and she's going to leave the ring and go up and grab her, and Dominic is holding on to Rhea, and she's screaming at Dominic, and Dom's like, let me take care of this. And Liv is instigating from up in the cheap seats. How was it? She said it when Dominic says the 3 little words or whatever. But anyway, Dominic now is going to placate Rhea. And he says, are you stupid? Are you deaf? I hate you. There's your 3 little words. And he goes into Spanish, and then he's back in English. You've ruined my life. And it's a fuck. It's a goddamn.
She turned around. Did you see when she turned around up there? And she
Liv?
yeah, she turned
Turned around and
around.
walked off?
No, she turned around very slowly to show you her ass. Because I said that's what this whole thing is about. This whole thing's about him wanting that ass.
Well, she was wearing an abbreviated costume. But the thing is, that's why I was saying when she turned around and walked off, they had the camera on her, because as Dominic has told her off, Liv is the heel, right? Because Rhea Ripley is one of the most popular goddamn, for now, the way they're booking her, one of the most popular personalities, male or female, in the company.
Yeah.
So then Liv must be a heel, and she's the one that's been trying to get this clueless putz to not be able to keep his dick in his pants and fuck with Rhea. Well, now when Dominic tells her off, the heel starts crying. Now, it was fake crying, but she was trying to act like it was real crying. She just couldn't really cry. So she starts, in quotation marks, crying, and turns around and walks off all upset. And then Rhea kisses and licks Dominic on the cheek for telling her off. So, but they still hate Dominic. Are we stuck in a goddamn loop again? And McAfee's closing remark was, well, Dominic's gone from the outhouse to the penthouse with Rhea. And I guess you could say that. Somebody could.
Rhea's a babyface, Dominic's a heel, Liv's a heel. I don't know what's so confusing about all that.
Well, but the heel is crying because she was bullied and told off. But should the heel cry for real?
It's a very interesting time. It's almost like a heel refusing to give up even when they threaten to light him on fire.
Well, but we'll get to that, but I could understand that, and I'll tell you why. See, I'll tell you why later on that one. But I don't think that the heel's going to have a lot of heat if she gets told off and she starts crying and she's obviously hurt and morose.
She's manipulative. Well, they really haven't established crazy, just playing games with people's emotions and causing them to, I don't know what else to say.
Games people play, right, wrong, you just can't stop them.
That's right.
What they should do. All righty, so that was Raw. That's what that was.
So what happened to the last hour of Raw?
Well, hold on here. Wait a minute, let me turn back to this page. At 10 o'clock, Zelina versus Zoe was their choice for the 10 o'clock hour. And I said, well, I'm going to zip to the main event. And I did. It was Sammy and Jey Uso against Finn and JD. And then I got distracted and I forgot to watch it. And then my attention was called back to it when the DVR ended and the news came back on. And I said, well, then I'd have to fucking zip through 2.5 hours that thing, start where. So I don't really have a report on that.
All right. Well, that was Raw.
It certainly was.